Welcome to Grand Sumo Breakdown,
the unofficial sumo podcast
for official sumo fans.
Welcome to Grand Sumo Breakdown. This is Ryan.
This is Jake.
This is Mac.
And Flarrick's supposed to be there.
Oh,
but
where'd he go?
We finally got rid of him.
Yeah.
But since he's been gone, we can breathe for the first time.
We're still moving on.
Yeah. Thanks to him, now we get what we want.
Oh, God.
Anywho,
that was bad.
Today we are looking at the life of Kitao Koji, a.k.a. the 60th Yokozuna, Futahaguro. He's a very interesting guy, and I've wanted to cover him for a long time. Unfortunately, like the Wajima episode the other month, it kind of sucks that his death is the reason that we're finally talking about him.
Yeah, we gotta get on that and start covering the alive guys.
Yeah, but
I swear we follow them when they're alive. It's just, we gotta do better.
Well, this will make the 10th Yokozuna out of 72 that we've covered, so we'll catch up to reality soon enough.
Perfect.
Yeah. But, yeah, either way, though, sumo, we know, is devastating to the human body. So this is probably not the last time that somebody's death will be the reason that we, dive into their life further.
The torn muscles, the dislocations, obviously the dislocated legs and knees. No, sumo isn't hard on the body at all.
No, it sucks, though. So Futahaguro died at 55.
Ooh.
Yeah, pretty young.
Mm-hmm.
What's crazy, though, is that's not super young for a Yokozuna.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Chris Gould did an excellent memoriam video. You should check that out on YouTube. But I if I remember right, he said by his calculations, the average Yokozuna doesn't make it to 60.
Wow.
Yeah, which is nuts, especially in the country with some of the highest life expectancy on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, we're covering him now, and I did have a lot of fun researching him because he was a fascinating character. And real quick, one thing I want to get out of the way at the top. This is going to be a pretty lighthearted episode. We are trying to celebrate the life of a character who was not perfect. He was a man known to have a temper, and it got him in trouble a number of important times. But my personal take on it is that if his life was a movie, it would probably be a comedy. A comedy with some drama, sure, but still. I'm just saying that we're not trying to make light of someone who faced a lot of adversity and died fairly young, and I'm not trying to minimize his transgressions, you could say, but we are going to have some fun exploring one of sumo's wilder stories. So with that said, we have a few special rules for this podcast, and you are probably wondering why I have armed you with Nerf guns. Yes. Let's hope your
Ryan
aim is better.
Prematurely fired there. Easy, Ryan.
I just have such fond memories of Nerf guns on this show.
I bet you do.
Ow. Oh, come on, we haven't even gotten to the rules.
And it has begun. So, probably the thing Futahaguro's sumo career is best known for is his lack of tournament wins. He is the only Yokozuna in history without any. So, to help everyone...
Any?
So to help everyone remember that, and also to maybe poke a little fun at a guy who has achieved more fame and fortune than the four of us ever will combined, our first rule is I am hereby banning the Y word on pain of Nerf. Anyone who says it must immediately be shot by at least one of their fellow podcasters. And Ryan, what is the Y word?
I'm guessing Yusho. Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
I got shot in the boob. So I will be avoiding the word Yusho. There it is. Okay.
You're just trying to get me out of darts before we get too deep into this.
It couldn't hurt.
I have more.
Thanks, Mac.
That was my reserve.
Second rule. We are all Yokozuna on this episode.
Ooh.
We have the same number of championships as Futahaguro. So it is only fair that we address each other as Yokozuna for the entire podcast. And this is probably fairly strange for Ryan. Sorry,
won.
Yokozuna Ryan.
Yeah, exactly. I won back in January, Yokozuna, Jake, and I believe I am tied with the most prediction series wins.
Moving on.
All right.
Rule number 3. Mac, smack Ryan in the face.
No.
What? I don't know. I was on a power trip. I wanted to see how far I could take it.
No.
Thank you, Mac.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that. Also, Jake.
Ow. Okay, I didn't. Okay.
Say, damn, man.
All right.
guess, believe it or not, I kind of like Ryan.
Now that we have established our rules, despite both of you breaking rule number 3, we're going to move on. One of the big sources that I used for this episode was a Nikon Sports article. It had a great summary of his entire career, and I'm going to be using some Google Translate quotes from it.
Oh, dear.
So, to start off with a quick summary, I was 55 years old. I went out of the room in trouble in December 1987 and then turned to an adventurer, a talent, a fighter. The fighters also retired in 1998. A life full of upset closed the curtain. And I think that pretty much wraps this whole thing up.
That was great.
We'll have a couple other bonus episodes before the Natsu preview, and we'll see you guys next time.
All right. Anyways, though, the article continues. Kitao-san took his first visit to the spring site in March 7-9 from the Tatsunami room and was promoted to Yokoseki from the first site in January 1986, from the first place in January and the autumn site in September of the same year.
So something about
What?
the Aki and Hatsu Bashos, and he was in the
Tatsunami
stable.
Yep.
Okay,
So
that I got.
Kitao was a big, obvious talent very young. He was born in the city of Tsu in Mie Prefecture. He was highly scouted. He even skipped high school for sumo, getting like the classic, age minimum start. He was 15 years old when he debuted. Very tall, very athletic, mainly a grappler. He went straight to Meizumo and then Jonokuchi, started in March of 1979, like we mentioned, with Tatsunami Beya. And he wrestled as Kitao, his birth surname, for most of his career. And just a little bit about the Tatsunami stable and Tatsunami Oyakata. The stable was originally run, not originally, but the previous stable master before he got there was Haguro Yama. And he passed it down to the later Haguro Yama. Trying to lay this out because there's at least 2 people who use every name in this story, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
But Tatsunami Oyakata, who wrestled as Haguro Yama, was the stable master that Kitao trained under for his entire career. That wrestler made it to Sekiwaki. He actually won a Yusho. Yep, come on. Yep, ow. Okay, yep, worth it. He wrestled from 1950 to 1965, and he took over the stable after that. This was kind of cool, I thought. He got 4 special prizes and 10 kinboshi in his entire career. However, he was 0-21 versus Taiho.
Ooh.
The Dai Yokozuna of the time. But just goes to show, Taiho was also pretty good at sumo.
He was.
Yeah.
But Tatsunami, there's a lot of things out there that he may not have run the tightest of ships, and maybe he should have kept a shorter leash on some of his wrestlers. In particular, Kitao did not really like to practice. He kind of had a reputation. Why are you pointing the gun at me?
I was just resting it. I apologize.
Resting it pointed at my face in case I say the Y word again.
Exactly.
But Kitao, he kind of had a reputation as a lazy, too good for this kind of guy. Some of that earned, some of that maybe exaggerated, but his father ran a construction company back home, so he always kind of had that as a potential backup and made it clear to other people that he had a potential backup.
I have options. You don't.
Yeah, once he was even Kyujo and he went home to hang out there rather than going to a proper hospital as is, policy.
I'm sure that went over very well.
Nobody cared. They moved on.
Wait, nobody cared?
No,
What?
I'm kidding. Of course they did.
Okay, very good.
But yeah, so his early career, he's got that kind of lackadaisical reputation. And, often when we look at former Yokozunas, I guess, looking at how am I trying to, oh my God, I have people who wrestle in sumo wrestling who are someday going to be a Yokozuna. That was the worst way to phrase that.
That was horrible.
Usually those people who fall under that set of circumstances absolutely carve through the lower divisions. Like they get to Makuuchi before they ever have a Makekoshi losing record or something like that. Not really the case for Kitao. He took a couple years to get up there. Let's see. So yeah, we mentioned that he started in 1979. And he did not get to the paid ranks until 1984. It took him
about 5 years.
Yeah, just under 5 years before he made it to Juryo.
Did he have any lower level Yusho? Oh, crap.
Get him.
Ah! I got him in the head.
My head!
Yep. Yes, you did. He had one in Jonokuchi. He debuted with a 7-0. And then he later on got one in Juryo. But that was pretty much it. He wasn't super dominant. He just kind of, methodically worked his way towards the top. However, once he got to the paid ranks, he absolutely obliterated the competition. Like something just like clicked, and that was it. And he just never had another losing record in a tournament that he finished.
Based on what we know about him before, it was probably like, oh, I'm actually getting paid for this now. Better start trying.
Maybe that was it, because he went through Juryo and Makuuchi like Rambo through nameless Russians.
Wow.
So here's a couple quick stats. He was Komusubi in his third Makuuchi Basho.
Holy crap.
Which was less than a year from his Juryo debut. He was an Ozeki in his 9th Basho in the paid ranks, in Makuuchi, the top division. He was a Yokozuna in his 13th Basho.
Good.
So he went from Juryo to Yokozuna in 2 years.
Wow.
In this pre-Yokozuna run, he got a Junyu show in a third of the tournaments. Oh, dang it. Ow. Oh, the neck.
Yeah, I'm trying to get these quick shots off, and they always lay it right in the head and neck. I'm not gonna work on that.
Oh yeah, such a burden on you. Okay, so here I'm gonna list off kind of a long list here, but it's worth it. I'm gonna go from July of 1984 to July of 1986, and I'm gonna list off all of his results. So at Juryo 1, he went 12-3. This was the tournament win, not the Y word. I'm gonna get the hang of that. That was the Juryo win that I was talking about. And because of that, and because of the other circumstances involved in people's records, he went all the way up to Megashira 8, and he got an 8-7 there. Went up to Megashira 3, got an 8-7. He got a special prize and a Kinboshi. Then he was, like I said, Komusubi, third Basho in the top division, 10-5 technique prize. Next time he went 10-5 and got the outstanding performance prize. Sekiwake, he went 6-3. Just had to bow out for a little bit of an injury there. So he went down to Megashira 1. But Megashira 1 went 12-3, got second place, 2 prizes, 2 Kinboshi, and went right back to Sekiwake, where he went 11-4 with an outstanding performance, then 12-3 with a second place finish and an outstanding performance, and then he's Ozeki.
I was about to say, that sounds like an Ozeki run to me.
Dang right. And then as Ozeki, he went 10-5, 10-5, 12-3 with a second place, and then 14-1 with a second place playoff for the championship. And yeah, that is where we're going to get to the weird stuff. But pre 7 of 1986, he was on an absolute tear. And I wanted to get through that because it's going to give some context to what happens next. Because in a controversial turn of events that could be called the incident, they had to promote somebody to Yokozuna here in September of 1986. There were already 5 Ozeki, including Kitao, and there was another one incoming, who went by Hoshi at the time and would become eventually Yokozuna Hokutoumi, and currently chair of the Sumo Association Hakaku. Yep. But at the time, there was also only one Yokozuna, and that was Chiyono Fuji. None of the other Ozeki had any case to be promoted to Yokozuna at this time, regardless of whether they had any titles to their name or not.
And you're just saying they wanted to promote somebody to Yokozuna because they were about to have 6 Ozeki?
They were about to have 6 Ozeki and 1 Yokozuna. So there was a lot of pressure to clear out that rank, make room a little bit, you could say. And can you really blame him for the run that he was on, that Kitao was on? That was incredible.
Excellent potential.
Yeah, he didn't win a tournament, though.
He didn't win a tournament, but in the previous one, the last one before the incident that we're talking about, he went 14-1. He beat Chiyono Fuji, the only Yokozuna, but then lost to Chiyono Fuji in the playoff.
Okay.
So he at least showed that he is on the same level as that guy in that tournament. But once they promoted him, things didn't go so well. He was not so great as a Yokozuna, and it only lasted about a year, and we'll get to why it only lasted about a year. But when he was promoted, he was kind of forced, kind of pressured into changing his name from Kitao. Wajima, we mentioned in a previous bonus episode, was allowed to, keep his name, and that was considered a big deal. That was out of the ordinary, and it may be because of that they didn't want that to happen again. They wanted
Wajima was such a respected Yokozuna
that guy had,
in the ring,
at
least.
In the ring.
He had a very good reputation in the ring. Outside, obviously, we covered that's another story.
Nothing but a rock star cowboy.
Exactly, yeah.
Maybe they don't want to just start handing that out to everybody or allowing everybody to do that.
Yeah, I don't really have any context, but I think that's a pretty safe bet on why they wanted to do that. So the name that was actually suggested to him by the chairman of the Kyokai, Kasugeno, who was formerly the 44th Yokozuna, Tochinishiki, he was given a suggestion of combining two names of great Yokozuna from his stable.
So you mentioned the first one is the Haguro Yama.
Yep, he was the 36th Yokozuna.
And in doing some research on an unrelated project, is it Futabayama that the Futa came from? Okay.
Exactly. So he combined those two names, Futabayama and Haguro-yama, became Futahaguro. And the kanji for these names, Futabayama, the three kanji that he uses are pear, as in two, not as in like the fruit. Pear, leaves, and mountain. And Haguro-yama is wings, black, and mountain. So when Futahaguro got his name, it became pear, wings, black. So pair of black wings, you could say.
Nice.
Huh. Oh, I was thinking
cool
pear
names.
like a fruit the whole time.
No, he just said
the reason that I
like
clarified pear is in two, so as opposed to the fruit. I clarified that so that people wouldn't be as dumb as you, but you
kind of blacked out for a second.
Oh, kanji. Oh, God.
But no, black wings. That's
pair of black wings. It's a pretty cool name. Yeah, I like it. And he selected the Shiranui style of Yokozuna Dohyo Iri, which has a long but not entirely ironclad reputation of being cursed.
That's the single knot in the back, right?
It's the one that basically everybody who's had scandals tied to their name has chosen. However, on the other hand, Hakuho uses that one.
Oh,
Hakuho scandals are made up by the Japan Sumo Association.
It's all fake. Yeah, Hakuho. I mean, he's a priceless angel.
Not saying that
with
either.
Nothing but sass. Nothing but that sass.
No, but
maybe over covered and over talked about for Hakuho, I think, in lieu of what else has happened.
Yeah. Either way, though. So I thought that was a cool little anecdote about how he got his name. But like I said, not so great as a Yokozuna. He started off by pulling out of his very first tournament halfway through.
Huh?
Yep. But then he came back strong, and he got...
Wait,
what's that?
What do you mean? Why? Why did he was he injured?
Oh, yeah. But, I mean, once you're a Yokozuna, you're not really punished for it, so it may have just been something that he was nursing, needed to take some time off.
No, I was thinking, did he take a shot from a guy that eventually won the U show? Or
No, it was just... Oh, got him. Nice, I missed that one. But no, it was just an injury thing. Nothing a big deal, but it was I don't know. In hindsight, in particular, it's kind of ominous that he pulled out of his very first Yokozuna tournament.
Mm-hmm.
He did come back and get 2 June U shows in a row. I had to commit.
Yep.
But he got 2 of those in a row, including one of them, which was a playoff loss. So this was his 6th second place. We're doing okay so far. I mean, this guy...
Same as Takayasu, notably not a Yokozuna.
Notably not a Yokozuna.
Takayasu, not a Yokozuna.
Yet, perhaps.
Yet?
Either way, so Futahaguro he pulled out, he got 2 second place, and then he pulled out again. Then he had a respectable 10-5 Yokozuna Kachikoshi, you could call it. And then things started getting a little bit worse. He actually finished the tournament at 8-7. Yeah, that's rough. And then at 9-6. Then he started to pull things back together. He got a second place finish with a 13-2 in November of 1987.
All right, so we're beyond Takayasu's current career.
He's at 7 of those. And then, however, what happens next in a controversial turn of events that could be called the incident. Yeah, you may be noticing a theme. Let me read you from that Nikon Sports article.
Oh,
what
joy.
happened. On December 27, 87, over the seasoning of the Chan, the master and large scale, I rushed out of the room, knocking out the mother who entered the arbitration. 4 days later, an extraordinary board of directors meeting was held, and it was resolved to shut down Futaba Black. After serving 8 places as Yokozuna, I got in trouble over the seasoning and jumped out of the room.
So
that pretty much covers that.
Knowing most of that story, I was able to follow
You knew
along
part
for
of
the
what was
most part.
coming.
Yeah.
I'm complete. He knocked down the Oyakata's wife?
Actually, yeah, that's kind of what happened.
Holy crap.
So it all started with an argument over, guess what? Tsukebito abuse.
Our favorite.
Our favorite.
They are
Now,
just
here's-
manservants.
and here's where I got to throw in a allegedly with some finger quotes, because on the 1987 Winter Jungyo, apparently he punched one of his Sukebitos, Yamanami. That's a pretty cool name.
I like that.
And
Yamanami.
injured his ear, and 6 out of his 7 Sukebito walked out on him, 3 of whom retired shortly after.
Oof.
Wow.
So that allegedly is more of like a, well, yeah, clearly something happened.
Something went down.
But in an argument about this with his Oyakata, a lot of things were said, and he actually kicked an 88-year-old man, one of the members of the Futahaguro fan club. A lot of sumo wrestlers have like their own dedicated fan clubs, and this guy had an 88-year-old in the club and kicked him as part of this whole argument that was going on. And on his way out of the heya, he pushed the Oyakata's wife. And
Holy crap,
yep,
dude.
and she injured her hand. So that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
That's a little bit more than being lazy and like not showing up to practice or something like that.
That's what I was expecting.
Yeah, so a couple quotes. Well, actually, why don't I go over what happened next, and then I got some quotes. But Tatsunami, his Oyakata, actually filed Futahaguro's retirement papers for him.
Ooh.
So effectively, he was fired, but because of the honor of the position and all that, it was framed as retirement papers. But on the other hand, how much does that say about the honor of the position if somebody else does it for you? I don't know. It's,
I believe, unprecedentedly got his retirement papers filed by the Oyakata.
Yep, definitely unprecedented and certainly hasn't happened since. So Tatsunami, he said, I have never heard of such an incident before. He lifted his hand to his master. Even I have things that I cannot forgive. He and his stable master, Tatsunami, was suspended for 3 months, took a pay cut, and had his leadership criticized in public for months because of this issue. Pretty big deal. And so I mean, it means a lot that he was the guy in charge of the guy who did this horrible thing. So, the buck has to stop there, and the Sumo Association put their foot down and punished him pretty severely. Futahaguro, for himself, he said, the fact that I undermined the title of Yokozuna was bad not only for me, but for society as a whole.
Okay, so it's not like he just went around and pretended like he was above everything. He knew that he sullied.
I mean, he also did that.
He at least went back and recognized what he did.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
This was a huge deal, and it's not like he can unfire himself. Like he definitely was apologetic in public, but it was
irreparable
a really
damage.
big deal.
Yeah.
Yep. He was actually he was the second Yokozuna who was kicked out for scandal. After Mai Dayama in 1949, who actually sat out of a basho claiming illness and then was photographed at a baseball game.
Are you sure we're not talking about Asashoryu?
Asashoryu happened after. He became the third Yokozuna kicked out.
Was he kicked out? I guess I don't remember.
We'll cover that in a later bonus episode.
Probably the Asashoryu episode.
Probably that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was also pretty much just kicked out as opposed to retired.
Gotcha.
But yeah, he was also Futahaguro was also denied his retirement cash, which was a big deal and probably what led to the next part of his life.
Another incident?
Going into pro wrestling.
Oh.
But that ends the sumo career of Futahaguro, retiring with those 7 Junyu shows. Damn it! And 0 tournament titles.
There you go. Mac, you're being a little nice with the whole Nerf gun thing.
Well, you are pretty gung-ho about it. So
like,
I think
you've got it covered, Ryan.
I had a whole episode of practice. I think you guys need
so much enjoyment out of this.
You guys need to work on your Nerf gun abilities here.
Are we really going to question that?
No, I have faith. I don't need you to prove your skill.
So the next step in Futahaguro's life here, he actually was forbidden from using that Yokozuna name.
Ooh.
I mean, most people are.
Before,
well, I mean, unless you're a Dai Yokozuna, you have to give up your name when you retire. So like a Dai Yokozuna, Takanohana, for example, like he only still goes by his wrestling name because of the status that he achieved.
I know Akebono still does. Is that?
Well, he certainly goes by that, in public, as like how we refer to him.
Mm-hmm.
But he was also, I believe, granted the right to continue using his name, but I don't think it's indefinitely for everybody.
Yeah, I know there have been 3 times where I've been getting into like some of the elder stock stuff recently, once again for an unrelated project to this episode, but I know there have been 3 times Takanohana, Taiho, and
Chiyono Fuji, I bet.
No?
No?
I think it was Kitanoumi. Were given the like one time, hey, just use your name forever. Chiyono Fuji was offered to be able to do that, but when he was in Oyakata, I don't remember what name he used, but
he didn't.
He did take up one of the elder stocks, typical elder stocks.
Cool. Well, Futahaguro did not reach that level of prestige, and therefore went back to Kitao Koji for his pro wrestling career. So let's go back to Nikon Sports for how that pro wrestling career went. After continuing his activities as a talent for U.S. adventure travel for about 2 years, he made a professional wrestling debut on February 10, 1990 at the Tokyo Dome tournament of New Japan Pro Wrestling. In the debut match with Bang Bang Bigelow, it was possible...
Bam Bigelow?
Yep. It was possible to win with guillotine drop and see the spectacular departure.
They cut a guy's head off? What the heck?
That's the only conclusion I can reach from that.
Spectacular departure. I'm like, the head was cleaved right from the shoulders in a true guillotine fashion.
No. But, no. Yeah, as if I need to clarify that that's not actually what happened. But, yeah.
No.
So, post-sumo retirement, he was briefly linked to the NFL, but I didn't really find much more information on that.
Like as a coach, or
it must have been very brief because he was only like 24 at this point.
Oh.
So like he still has plenty of athletic career left. It could have been as a player. I couldn't really dig anything else up, but clearly it wasn't a big deal at the time because he went to pro wrestling immediately after. What that U.S. adventure travel quote was all about is that he actually wrestled in the United States first. He went to Vern Gagne's AWA in 1989, wrestled there for a little while as the Masked Monster. He kept a mask on in part to hide his identity. But eventually he did move to New Japan Pro Wrestling, beat Bam Bam Bigelow. I'm kind of curious how that translated to Bang Bang Bigelow.
Yeah, I was going to say, how did that work?
I don't know. I just thought it was a little funny because I'm immature that way.
Yes.
He actually, in his pro wrestling years, used music composed by Damon Kaka. Yeah.
Damon Kaka.
Recurring background character on the GSP history episodes.
Yeah, I wonder how many times he's going to weave himself in and out of the Yokozuna episodes.
Clearly a huge sumo fan, but yeah, he wrote... oh, man. And this, Ryan, I want your help on this, and anybody listening, I want your help on this. I want to find that song, and I'm having trouble with it.
Which song?
The song that Damon Kaka wrote for him, it's called Thunderstorm. And granted, I didn't devote sleepless nights to this or anything, but I couldn't dig it up, and I think it would be awesome to know it. But anyways, he wrestled for New Japan for a little while, and then in a controversial turn of events that could be referred to as the incident.
Part 2 or 3 at this point?
I think we're on 3.
Okay.
He was fired within a year for his behavior.
Who did he hit?
He actually didn't hit anybody. He was using racial slurs for the fellow wrestlers who were from Korea.
Can't be doing that.
Can't be doing that. In particular, it was a feud with Riki Choshu, and he was clearly more liked than Kitao within the company, so that's where they sided.
Kind of weird. Kind of figured that might be the other way with Kitao's sterling reputation.
Exactly. So yeah, he moved on from NJPW. Next, he went to Super World of Sports. Yeah, there's a ton of different wrestling promotions.
Before WWE squashed them all.
Before everyone was squashed by the juggernaut that is Vince McMahon and all of his money. There was a lot of different promotions. There was a lot of actually cross-promotion stuff. So in Super World of Sports, he actually met a guy who would become one of his good friends and collaborators, I guess you could say, for the rest of his career. That would be Tenryu. Have you heard that name, Ryan?
I have.
And I bet I know why. It would have been WrestleMania 7. Kitao and Tenryu wrestled against Demolition.
Oh, then I've actually seen that match.
You have, yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah. No, it was classic, like, early 1990s
Not
wrestling.
that great.
Yeah, I mean, the wrestling itself, yeah, whatever.
Demolition was a fairly dominant. They held the tag team championships for over 400 days, which the New Day recently, a couple years ago, broke that streak, but they were a boring tag team.
But yeah, at WrestleMania 7, they did have a match, and Tenryu and Kitao won. And yeah, just a little bit of context on Tenryu. He is a big deal in pro wrestling and actually in sumo wrestling too. He made it up to Megashira 1, but he quit fairly young during a Heya shakeup. There was retirements by coaches and wrestlers moving back and forth between Heias and things like that. And that just didn't really work out for him. It may have just been that he'd kind of hit his ceiling and sumo wasn't like his life's passion. But he did retire fairly young as well. Well, I mean, his was by choice, but either way, he moved on to pro wrestling and was a huge deal there. He is the only Japanese wrestler to pin Antonio Inoki and Giant Baba. And he was the first Japanese wrestler to win the top 2 titles in the country, All Japan's Triple Crown and New Japan's IWGP Heavyweight. I say first Japanese man to win those 2 titles because Vader technically did it first, but he's
awesome.
American. American wrestlers.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of a big deal.
Vader passed recently as well.
Well, we should do an episode on Vader. Last fun fact on Tenryu here. One of his big storylines, he wrestled with another guy named Tsuruta. And when they were a tag team, they combined their names. They combined 2 kanji from their names and were known as Kakaryu.
Huh.
Yep. So the Ryu from Tenryu, of course, and the Kaku is another way to pronounce one of the kanji in Tsuruta's name.
So now we know that Kakuryu was a passionate fan of professional wrestling.
There's no other reason that he would have named himself
the
that.
only reason that
Exactly.
he is Kakuryu now.
But yeah, so Tenryu, despite some of the things that are coming up, Tenryu and Kitao do stay close. They cross paths many more times. But in a controversial turn of events that could be known as The Incident,
Part 4.
in a 1991 Super World of Sports / WWF joint show, Kitao had a match with Earthquake.
Okay. John Tenta. Previously in sumo wrestling as well.
Exactly. And I think that may be part of the reason for how this went the way it did. So these two did have a perfectly normal match 2 days before The Incident. And nothing out of the ordinary there. But this particular fight went weird immediately. Kitao stopped. He did what's called no selling. He's like, showing off and like not.
Somebody hits you and then you pretend like you're not hurt or anything.
Yeah, you do. You act like Hulk Hogan and you make it look like the other guy's shots don't do you any damage or anything like that.
Yeah.
And the match turned into what's called a shoot, where it stops being scripted.
Yes, it stops being scripted and they're actually going at each other.
Yes.
I think I found it.
Mac is back after looking for the song.
Well, of course. You mentioned Demon Kaka. Of course I'm going to try and
Well,
find it.
Mac's
So,
the expert there. Ryan's the expert on pro wrestling, and Mac's the expert on Daemon Kaka. Why don't you save the link? Maybe we can put that in our description or something.
10-4.
Awesome. So yeah, in this particular match, Kitao stopped selling the attacks like right away.
Hold
he
on.
Started.
We've been neglecting rule number 2 this entire episode.
Oh my God, we totally forgot about that.
Holy crap.
Yokozuna Mac is the expert on music, and Jake,
Yokozuna Ryan is the expert on pro wrestling.
which I will point out contradicts some erroneous statements made by me on the Haru review episode. But go on.
Oh dear. Well, thanks for bringing that up, Yokozuna Ryan.
You're welcome, Yokozuna Jake.
So in this particular episode, Makushita Earthquake versus Yokozuna Kitao. Kitao started kicking at his legs and, like raking his eyes, hitting him in the face. There's a lot, and I mean, that description may make it sound exciting and interesting, but there's a lot of stare downs and chest puffing, looking tough and all that, circling the ring, and just in general, Kitao being a dick. He's like actually hurting Earthquake, and eventually it gets to the point where the ref is like trying to get things back under control. Kitao kicks the ref.
Ooh.
He's got a theme.
So he got disqualified from that match.
Yep, he got DQ'd, and afterwards he actually committed a cardinal sin, which led to him getting fired. He broke character, and he grabbed a mic from ringside and said, "Wrestling is fake."
Can't do that unless you're
That's
Ronda
bad.
Rousey nowadays.
We all know that wrestling is as real as anything, so that is cardinal sin. I believe he used the word yaocho, which contains a lot of context in the world of sumo wrestling. Yaocho is the term for match fixing, trading wins so that people can get kachikoshis. Yeah. Big deal to use that word.
You don't use that.
So he's gone from Super World of Sports. Like I mentioned briefly, I think that a lot of this could be a respect issue. Why should a Yokozuna be, doing the job or taking a loss from a guy who never got higher than Makushita?
Mm-hmm.
And on another slight quick tangent, I'll make this one quick. When I say that only Makushita, John Tenta, he went by Koto Tenzan when he wrestled. He never lost a match.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Ever. I mean, I'm making that sound pretty cool.
Did he win any
but no, he went 21-0 in his entire career because he got up to Makushita with 3 consecutive Yusho. Son of a... Ow.
Mac, you could still hit him.
With
no,
3...
no, because you failed. I said you show, and you sucked.
He said it again.
Oh, he did.
crap!
Oh, man.
So Mac just shot himself in the neck for some reason. Because
It was my
apparently
chin.
he said the Y word, the championship
And nobody
word.
shot him?
Apparently.
And nobody.
Yeah. But no,
I will do better, Yokozuna Mac.
Koto Tenzan or John Tenta, he won 3 in a row. He was 21-0 in his career, but he quit because of the lifestyle. It wasn't like it was, he couldn't make it. He clearly had the athleticism and the size to get further than that, but it wasn't worth it to him. He was going to have to actually get a tattoo removed if he was going to continue in sumo, and that may have been one of the inciting incidents that made him decide to quit right then. Either way, though, he went on to be a very big deal in 1990s pro wrestling. He was actually a WWF tag champ with Typhoon. Pretty big deal, and he actually died of cancer in 2006. But
I think I remember Typhoon.
Yeah, he was actually a WWF tag champ with Earthquake. That may be how you've heard of Typhoon.
No, I'm just saying, like,
No, I
all the other ones, I'm like, I think I've actually heard of that guy.
I'm screwing with you, Yokozuna Mac. So after this, he decides to look into real fighting. I'm sure he had some experience with unscripted fighting prior to this, but
Yeah, like sumo wrestling.
But he got a black belt in karate. He goes back to wrestling, and he wrestles throughout the 90s, but never again for quite as major of a promotion. He goes back to wrestling, and he kind of has this martial arts gimmick is kind of his deal, including a controversial turn of events that could be known as the incident.
Part 5 for those keeping count at home.
He ended
This
up
time it's
in a
personal.
match. He ended up in a match with Nobuhiko Takada, who shot on him and KO'd him with a head kick
Oh. And this was in a professional wrestling.
in a professional wrestling match.
Okay.
Yes,
Yikes.
exactly. So a lot of shoot matches going on in 1990s Japanese pro wrestling.
Apparently.
Takada, another pretty big deal in pro wrestling. He was a NJPW heavyweight champ. He tried MMA, didn't really go anywhere. Now he's an executive with some current Japanese mixed martial arts promotions. But either way, after this match, despite getting head kicked and knocked out, Kitao showed sportsmanship and bowed to the crowd. Kind of earned his place back a little bit in pro wrestling as far as his persona. Eventually, he would reunite with Tenryu. Like I said, a handful of different promotions. He kind of had He kind of had a gimmick with the Kitao Dojo, was like his group of dudes that, he wrestled with and he was the leader of. Eventually, he did reconcile with Riki Choshu, the guy that the potentially racist remarks that got him fired from NJPW. He wrestled more with them, including one match where he tagged with Antonio Inoki. Pretty big deal there. And he appears unofficially in several WCW video games as Kim Chi. If you run into any of those like Super Nintendo or N64 era wrestling games.
WCW versus NWO Revenge was my jam.
That is the video game, as well as WCW versus NWO World Tour. Those two games, he's in there as Kim Chi.
I think I played Revenge, but that was my jam.
So you probably wrestled as Kitao at some point.
Probably not. I probably stuck with like Sting or Hogan.
Ooh, Sting.
But yeah, so despite that, he still didn't really get super far in it.
Actually, weirdly enough, I played a lot as Disco Inferno. Don't know why. We should probably move on.
Let's. Nikon Sports can help us out here with where he went.
Perfect.
Kitao-san, who has lost his place in professional wrestling, turned to a general fighter. The game was played at UWF International and the early Pride, etc., but he did not give a good track record and announced his current service retirement in 1998.
So he got on with Pride, which is like an MMA group in its early stages, but didn't do very well, and so he retired in 1998.
He went 1-2 in professional MMA. Granted, this is still like in the very early stages of MMA. It wasn't as established as it is now.
At this point, he's like early to mid 30s, right?
Oh yeah. No, I mean he's still got plenty of athleticism left. But here were the three matches that he had in professional MMA. In a Vale Tudo promotion, he lost to Pedro Otavia. Not even kidding you.
The Pedro.
He was representing and cornered by his Kitao Dojo wrestlers. And he wrestled in a karate gi, which anyone who knows anything about MMA knows that means that you probably don't know what you're doing in MMA. He actually got a takedown on the guy, but in the early days of MMA, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu absolutely dominated. So, as soon as the Pedro got out from under him, ground and pound, and finished him off. He actually then went on to the UFC. At UFC 9, he faced Mark Hall, who was maybe half of his weight.
Mark Hall?
Unfortunately not, but I wish. So he fights against Mark Hall. Looks like absolute flaming garbage at distance, until he closes up and clinches. He's so huge that he looked just fine in the clinch, and he eventually got the takedown. But at some point in there, Mark Hall snuck in a punch and destroyed Kitao's nose, like sideways, kind of broken.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was bleeding all over. The doctor stepped in and had to call the match. It was so bad. But to his credit, he got the takedown and looked to be controlling position and stuff. I don't know.
Until his nose decided to go one way.
Until his nose
face went the other
exploded.
way.
Yeah. His very last match was at the first Pride event to Nathan Jones.
That's a future WWE wrestler.
Yep. And also he is the big bald bad guy in Tony Jaa's The Protector, if you've seen that. And probably nobody but me has. He gets a takedown on Jones, gets into side control, very dominant position, and quickly submits him with an Americana shoulder lock.
So at this point, Kitao has been in and out of professional wrestling and MMA, but he hasn't really had any big incidents or bad incidents for quite a few years at this point. He seems
more like a couple years.
Okay.
This stuff is all happening in the 90s, so like the incident was like 1991, 92.
And that was the racist remarks that got him, or the shoot match.
The shoot match happened after that.
Okay.
Did he retain the size and girth of a sumo wrestler while he's doing MMA, or did he attempt to slim down at least a little to be more like?
I believe he made the decision to retain the same height that he was using.
He did. Yeah, he did make that decision.
Okay, well that's smart.
That did help him out in his MMA career. And I mean, it's significant height too. I mean, the guy was where did I write it down? He's 6'7".
Oh wow!
Yeah, when he wrestled, he was or when he was in sumo, he was at 155 kilos. Let's see, does it have?
That's a little over 300.
Yeah,
Ish.
give or take. That's the same weight he was billed at as a pro wrestler. So he must have held on to most of it. But if you look up videos of the guy, he doesn't look like obese. He's clearly huge.
He's 6'7", so
yeah.
Helps.
The guy was gigantic. Like for a fighter, for a pro wrestler, he's still gigantic. But he looked like the build of a proper pro wrestler.
Okay.
That size. Well, Nathan Jones is significantly bigger still because that guy's
a freak.
He's a freak of nature. He's enormous. So that was his MMA career. 1 and 2, decided not really to go on with it. He did have an official retirement ceremony at a later Pride show. And that's partly because of Tenryu. Tenryu, the guy, the lifelong friend and fellow pro wrestler who went into Pride administration or whatever the word I'm looking for is. He was one of the organizers with that company. But he did still sporadically pro wrestle. And okay, I'm going to get shot for this one here. He won he won his only pro wrestling title. You could say a Yusho of pro wrestling. He won the War Promotions 6-man tag belt. It's something.
Yes, but what is it?
It's a belt that you receive for winning a 6-man tag match for the promotion called War, or WAR.
I didn't know there was such a thing as a 6-man tag match.
I don't know. There's a lot of belts out there.
Yeah. Okay.
Jake, may I have my bullet back, please?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yokozuna, Jake.
Yokozuna, Jake, and I did say thank you.
I know. Whatever. Some of the other... I found a couple other things he got up to in the 90s. But in 1992, he had a cameo in a Hong Kong/Japanese movie called Fighting Fist, credited as actor.
Very prestigious.
A very notable name.
Yeah. In 1996, he had a cameo as sumo wrestler in the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie The Quest, where a group of mercenaries goes to a lost city in Tibet to steal an artifact during a martial arts tournament.
Of course.
So the next movie on my watching list is clearly The Quest.
It's not Rumble in the Bronx?
Well, I can only have one next movie.
Oh,
and
fine.
It's clearly Jean-Claude Van Damme trumps anything else.
You take that back. Jackie Chan is the man.
I don't know where I'd rank those two, but Jean-Claude Van Damme certainly is up there.
Jackie Chan over Jean-Claude.
Thank you, Ryan.
All right.
Yokozuna, Ryan.
Thank you.
2-1, I concede. But yeah, so he retired officially from MMA and from pro wrestling at the end of the 90s. And there isn't a whole lot else on what he got up to. In 2003, though, he did come temporarily back to Tatsunami stable and helped. Here, let me read the Nikon Sports quote for it.
That'll clear everything up.
With Google Translate?
In September 2003, he replaced the time he was in sumo wrestling, but he visited the room for the first time in 16 years and became an advisor.
Okay, so he became a coach.
That was a little bit more clear.
Did he become a coach at Tatsunami stable?
Not like a full-on oyakata. But,
okay.
But yeah, this was like a short-term thing, but he did, it was more of like a ceremonial, I guess, or an emotional thing to go back and kind of make amends with the sumo community as a whole.
Do you know, was it the same Tatsunami Oyakata that turned his papers in?
I am getting to that because as sumo stables work, the current coach, still called Tatsunami, was a different Tatsunami than the Tatsunami who was Haguro-yama, but not the Yokozuna Haguro-yama, because that was a different Haguro-yama. So this is a different Tatsunami than the other Tatsunami.
It's not confusing at all.
But this Tatsunami married the other Tatsunami's daughter. And because of that, became the son-in-law and kind of heir, I guess you could say, to the Tatsunami who fired Kitao. And so this new guy had taken over. And part of that whole taking over also kind of became a controversial series of events that could be referred to as the incident.
Part 6.
But this one has nothing to do with Kitao.
Oh, okay. So we'll leave it at part 5.
So old Tatsunami had been accused of skimming bonus cash from his wrestlers for years. Including new Tatsunami saying that he stole a bunch of new Tatsunami's retirement cash. There's a big hoopla, a big falling out. New Tatsunami actually divorced old Tatsunami's daughter in this whole process. But it was a big deal. They settled out of court, But this court case was notable because it was the first and, as far as I'm aware, only time that a court case has revealed the actual value of a sumo elder share. The monetary value of it.
250,000 some yen-ish?
Let's see.
It was more than that. It was like 2.3 million.
Yeah, when converting it to today's dollars, it would be about 2 million.
Okay.
So it's something that was previously a pretty close secret. But what happened was old Tatsunami sued new Tatsunami for this value. And the reason he did it was because he gave the elder share to his son-in-law and heir. But when
typically those are paid for, you have
typically
to buy that
you would
elder
buy.
share.
Yeah, typically that would be like, a wrestler saves up money their whole career and then they buy the share from somebody
And
else
that's
or whatever.
if you meet the requirements from your wrestling career, like
there's
you reach the
You have to be
Sanyaku
allowed
ranks,
just to buy it.
or you're like a Megashira for a certain amount of time, or you're in Juryo for an even longer amount of time.
But what it effectively meant, though, is that he gave this thing away for free, but because of this falling out, says, now you have to pay for it. And he's like retroactively saying that, yeah, I don't want to give it to you. You have to pay me. They settled out of court. It didn't I don't know exactly how much money changed hands, but it probably wasn't a full $2 million.
But new Tatsunami stayed Tatsunami, correct?
New Tatsunami, yeah, he had already become the coach, had the name, had the stable. But because of this full split from old Tatsunami, it kind of led to a movement to reconnect with Kitao, led actually by one of those previous Tsukebitos. And I can't find for sure if this guy was the one out of the 7 that didn't walk out on him. I'm not really sure. Regardless, though, it was more of an amicable PR coup, I guess, for Tatsunami to bring back this Yokozuna that was so controversial, but that was all 16 years ago, you know? So he, in an unofficial capacity, he helped out with training, he did, he just helped out and lent his name to the whole thing. Like I said, kind of a PR coup, nothing too much more than that. But that kind of ends the story as far as what's out there, because from there, he basically retired to private life. And from 2003 to 2019, nothing really in the news about the guy. He was just kind of kept his nose down. And from all that pro wrestling and stuff, I'm willing to bet that he just retired comfortably.
Yeah.
But I can't confirm that. So he did, like we covered, he did still die fairly young. Like many Yokozuna, he suffered from pretty severe physical decline. And I don't know if I want to say he died in obscurity, but like he died not being a public figure, not having a big public presence in his later years here.
Yeah, we found out that he passed in mid to late March,
Mhm.
but it turns out he actually had passed like early February, I believe.
It was at least like 3 weeks or so that his family didn't make anything known to the news.
Mhm.
And I mean, it's not something like you don't go to somebody's family and ask, is that guy still alive?
Yeah,
you don't.
Right.
You kind of wait for the news to be filtered out from family, from relatives, whatever. But yeah, so it wasn't known right away. But either way, it was. I hope that it was a happy, calm retirement. But the kidneys, the kidney disease that he had been fighting it for about 13 years apparently.
Oh wow.
I don't know how severely, or if he was like bedridden or whatever. I don't know, but that is what killed him, and he had that. He was fighting it for a long time. But that kind of ends the story itself of the only Yokozuna to have not won any U shows. I knew it was coming.
Well, yeah.
But for a little bit here, I want to go over the impact that he had on sumo wrestling. Because as Nikon Sports says, since the winning system was introduced in 1909, 42 days ago, it has become the only Yokozuna with no winning experience. As a result, promotion of Yokozuna began to take a prudent stance, and Ozeki was required to have a record of winning in a row or in a row.
Ah, yes. Very, very clear distinction
Yeah.
between those two options.
Yes, of course. So
The current statistics that we have now for Ozeki and for Yokozuna were determined based from his performance then, because of him.
it was the way the rule is looked at now. we always say that like you should win 2 Yusho in a row. Oh, son of a.
Oh, hey.
Yep, pick it up. Oh God, that was a good shot.
Yeah.
Here's your bullet, Yokozuna Ryan.
Thank you, Yokozuna Jake.
So 2 Yusho in a row is kind of the. Dang it! Why did I? Oh,
Hey, you're saying
I don't know where that one went. That one, you're on your own.
All right.
I think it's on the
I
floor.
believe you were talking about 2 Yusho in a row.
There you go.
Thanks for making me feel better. At
Yeah.
least. So that's kind of the standard we look at now.
What's the standard?
The way the way it's
championships in a row.
the way it's historically been looked at is 2 championships or championship equivalent performances in a row.
Like Kisei no Sato.
Exactly. So Kisei got a second place, and then he got a first place finish.
Something similar with Kakuryu as well, because he only had
Exactly.
one at his.
But that's kind of my opinion here, and I'll give you some stats and you can make up your own mind. But I think they are relaxing the standards again. I think they're coming out of it's been long enough that it's not that big of a deal.
The
But let me
Hakumo
go
time
over.
is setting.
Well, no, it's not looked at as 2 championships in a row the way that it was for a while. So let me go through a couple of Yokozuna and what they had going into their promotion.
This is going to be a very dangerous time for you.
It's very dangerous. There's a lot of Y's and JY's in my notes here. So Hokuto Umi, the aforementioned Hakaku, he got a 12-3 win and a 13-2 second place and was then promoted. But this was pre-Futahaguro scandal. So when Futahaguro was a Yokozuna, Hokuto Umi was promoted right then before Futahaguro left.
Mhm.
Same with Onokuni. He had a 15-0 win and then 2 second place finishes in a row and was promoted.
Oh, so he's promoted after back-to-back. Second place is not after the win.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, and again, those 2 pre-scandal. Everything else, this is all post-scandal. And Asahi Fuji, I think, is the best case that you can make for the Sumo Yokozuna Deliberation Council saying, hold the F up, we need to be sure. Because at the beginning of 1988, this is immediately after the scandal, he goes 14-1 and he wins. Asahi Fuji does. The next tournament, he goes 12-3, but not a second place, nothing. Just a 12-3. Still very good.
Yeah, I was about to say that's Kachikoshi for Yokozuna.
But in the next year, he gets 5 second place finishes in a row, including
Holy cow.
2 playoff losses. That's a big deal.
Why are they hitting the brakes?
And no promotion. It would have been a bigger deal if 1990 hadn't happened. In 1990, he gets back-to-back 14-1 wins and gets a promotion.
Mhm.
So it happened anyways. But think of if he had gotten that big streak and then something else happened to him and he had to retire, that would have been the biggest example of, or the biggest piece of evidence that the Yokozuna Deliberation Council was taking things seriously.
Yeah.
But after that, Akebono is the next Yokozuna. And this one, he didn't really get robbed in any sense because he didn't have consecutive really good performances until he got a 14-1 and a 13-2, both wins in 1993, and he got the promotion totally legit. Takanohana was the next one. In 1993, he goes 11-4, second place, 14-1, win, 13-2, second place, playoff loss, and then 12-3, second place. Another great streak that probably would have resulted in a promotion. I don't think it's as clear cut as Asahi Fuji,
Mhm.
but those 2 are really good examples that they're taking it seriously. And then a year later, he goes 15-0 twice in a row and gets a promotion. And as we know, he ended up with like 22 titles. So
Yeah.
clearly a Yokozuna, but
Yes.
they had to up their standards a little bit. His brother Wakanohana, he gets a second place with a playoff loss, and then a 14-1 win, no promotion. He finally gets the promotion when he goes 14-1 and 12-3 and gets 2 wins in 1998. So made it, but another one that probably would have done it.
Do you have any numbers on Konishiki? And I know we talked about him in one of our... Okay, you're getting there?
No.
okay.
He didn't really have the 2 blown out of the water performances in a row.
Okay. Because I know there's a lot of people that thought he might have been robbed because I think he had a total of 3 career
He had 3 in his
Yusho.
career. None of them were consecutive, but like he wasn't as... Oh, yeah. Thanks. I missed it. Nice.
Thank you, Yokozuna Mac.
Thanks, Yokozuna Mac. But yeah, he didn't have like the back-to-back obvious stuff going on.
Okay.
He was also kind of a contemporary of Kitao, so it, maybe his strongest case would have been before or after. I'm not exactly sure.
Because I know when we talked about him, he brought up like possible racism by the Japan Sumo Association as to why he didn't get the Yokozuna promotion, because he did have these 3 championships. But like you're saying, they were really strict at this time as to who they were promoting, clearly.
Yep.
So
strict, and the fact that they're not consecutive is a big deal. That is a huge deal for the Yokozuna Deliberation Council.
I'm still having a hard time wrapping my head around this. These guys have all done phenomenal. I mean, to standards that even looking at it now, like this is definitely Yokozuna caliber. Again, I know it's showing that they're serious, but wow, guys, really? Like, these guys are doing fantastic.
Yeah, and another one that I think is a great example is Musashi Maru. Twice in 1994 and 1996, he had a second place followed by a win and no promotion. In 1999, though, he got consecutive wins, 13 and 2s, and promoted in 1999. So all worked out. Asashoryu made an absolute laughingstock out of everyone else who tried to do sumo with him. He made it to Ozeki and immediately won 2 in a row. So yeah,
was he only Ozeki for 1 basho or 2 basho?
Let me look it up real quick. But it was not long. It was certainly not long. Okay, here's Sashoryu. How long were you in Ozeki? 3 basho.
Okay.
Wow.
He went 10 and 5 in his first one, and then 14 and 1 in his second and third.
Okay.
He followed that up by winning 19 of the next 25 bashos,
including the only time that they won
six in a calendar year. Yep.
I mean, Hakuho has won 7 in a row, maybe twice. I think he's run 6 in a row
not
twice,
in the
but
same,
not in a calendar year.
Yep. So Asashoryu clearly deserving of the Yokozuna promotion.
Yeah.
There was no controversy there. He didn't even cool off at all until Hakuho gets up there to be Yokozuna. We all know the story with Hakuho.
He done good.
He
He can do the sumo.
Haruma Fuji was a longtime Ozeki. He got 2 random tournament championships.
There you go.
But didn't really go anywhere.
Okay, you're saying 2 random, like he had one.
He had one here, he had one there.
And then he kind of did bad, then did good, then did bad.
Yeah. So he wasn't super consistent until he decided to not lose for 2 basho in a row. In 2012, he went 15-0 twice and got a promotion. Kakuryu is my pick for the best case. This is where I'm starting to develop the idea that they're starting to relax the standards again. And I think part of it may be that Hakuho's there and he's soaking up all of the Yushos. Son of a... Ow. He's soaking up all of them, and it's harder to become a Yokozuna, like, championship wins or equivalent may be part of the standard here again, because Kakuryu, he was Sanyaku for quite a while. He wasn't Ozeki for super long, but he got 3 second-place finishes in there. At the beginning of 2014, he got 14-1, a second place with a playoff loss, and then he went 14-1 with the win, and he got promoted. So this is kind of going back to those like pre-scandal guys where it's like, oh, that was a pretty good second place, and oh, you win the next one. There you go, you got it. So that's
been almost 25 years at this point since the Futahaguro scandal. So yeah, I could definitely see them maybe relaxing it a little bit. Everybody that was on that council is gone now.
Yep, pretty much.
But could it be based off the caliber as well? I mean, you have Hakuho in the mix. You have Haruma Fuji in the mix right now as well. Could it be that the talent was also that much better than what it used to be? Or I'm trying to think of like why. In this case, yes, definitely. Compared to some of the old ones, this seems way more lax. But maybe it's the caliber improved.
It could be it could be a judgment call in that sense. I mean, clearly it's a judgment call, but like it could be something where the current era is deemed tough enough that performance is Yokozuna caliber. I'm not really sure, but I do think that this is a good case for that the idea that they are relaxing the standards. Kisa no Sato, kind of a special case because he had such a long Ozeki run. He got 12 second place finishes before he was promoted, and his promotion happened after a 12-3 Junyu show, and that dang it, I even forgot that one.
Yeah, so did I. Good job, Yokozuna Mac.
So he got a 12-3 second place, and then a 14-1 win. He did beat Hakuho in both of them, But the reason I say he's a special
right there,
case,
promotion right there.
I wonder.
Yeah, exactly.
We should look at Kakuryu, see how he did against Hakuho when he won his tournament, because that might be kind of because of how dominant Hakuho's been. Maybe that's kind of a championship win equivalent.
That's what I was thinking. It's like, because you have Hakuho, because he is the king, any chance you get to topple the king, that kind of shows that, all right, you might have a little bit more talent here.
he beat Hakuho in both of them.
So maybe that's a consideration factor, just because like Hakuho was still is, but injuries now kind of declined how many Yushos he's winning.
Sure.
Just he was such a huge dominant force that maybe they're like, we're not going to get any more Yokozuna if we're looking for back-to-back
Yeah.
winners, because
He's not
with
gonna let
Hakuho around, he's just not going to let anybody
Yeah,
get it.
exactly. So that could be a great reasoning behind it. But
And hold
here.
on, real quick pause, because Mac is such a gentleman and did this to himself. I said,
you said it?
I said
You
back-to-back
said it.
championship wins, but I said the Y word. And I shot myself in the neck at point-blank range, and that was not a good idea.
It
Yeah.
hurts, doesn't it?
It does.
You both deserved it, Yokozunas.
Thank you.
But yeah, so I looked it up. The second place finish that Kakuryu got, that he followed up with a tournament win. He beat Hakuho in regulation and then lost to him in a playoff. So that could be why it's viewed as a, championship equivalent performance. So either way, it's still a bit of a relax on the standards. Same with Kisano Sato, but
Kakuryu would have gotten there anyways, as he got back-to-back last year. And
Eventually,
same with Kisei no Sato, because he got his back-to-back in his last one as Ozeki and his first as Yokozuna. So
exactly
everybody's ended up getting it at some point.
right.
Just
but
a little bit longer getting there.
I think Kisano Sato, it's a bit of we play up the idea a little bit that everybody was super excited to get a Japanese Yokozuna for the first time in a long time. That could be part of it, but another part of it is that he had those 12 second place finishes.
Mhm.
It's clear that he is somebody that's once he gets one, good, way to go. Now we no longer have to worry about it being a black mark on the sport or the rank or whatever. Now that he has one, we can totally justify giving him this.
Yeah.
So, but either way, yeah, he, like you said, he won. He went 14-1, beat Hakuho in that one, and then he won the next one.
Mhm.
But in that next one where he won, that was the injury, and
Yep.
Yeah.
The rest
And-
is history.
and thus rests Kisano Sato.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think that's probably the biggest impact he has on the sport itself, going up into this date. But he was Kitao, I mean, but he was super important as far as the direction of the sport and the lessons that you can learn about sumo as an organization. What kind of discipline it requires and what kind of things you can do to break tradition far enough that it's too much. And granted, he went pretty far. He would have gotten fired from any job for that. But it's interesting to me how somebody like Tatsunami, who allegedly was skimming money and running not running a very tight ship, combined with somebody like Futahaguro or Kitao at the time, who wasn't super dedicated to the sport, always talked about having a backup plan. Those two together were kind of destined, I think, to end in, not necessarily end, but at least come across
Controversy.
incidents, as we mentioned.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised he didn't go back to the construction job. He touted it so much. It was like, well, why aren't you pursuing this as your backup plan?
Well, I think that was more like in his early career where he was justifying not doing the training on his way up. But once you're a Yokozuna, you got a name you can make money off of. So
But
maybe he saw
you
it
could
that way.
totally sell that with a construction company, the Yokozuna Construction Company.
Yeah.
Come on, I'd go for that, definitely.
I mean, if you're building dohyos, maybe, but actually, no. I bet they suck at that because if you're such a good sumo wrestler, they probably don't make you do the menial work.
No. Pretty sure it's the Yobidashis that
Oh yeah,
build
yep.
the dohyos. So yeah, it just sounds like somebody that had such amazing potential. Like he seemed like a freak athlete. He at least had the huge
for
frame.
sure. Yeah.
And even it doesn't sound like he was the most dedicated to training or anything like that. So just imagine what this guy could have done had he been dedicated to his training and mastering his craft. He made it to the rank of Yokozuna without seemingly, at least at the beginning of his career, having the dedication. Just think what he could have done had he kept his nose clean and trained how he should have.
The passion that he clearly didn't. He clearly wasn't passionate enough about sumo wrestling to change other parts of his life.
And sumo being not a sport but a lifestyle, you need to have that passion.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Like somebody who's as talented as Hakuho wouldn't be where he's at unless he also had the passion for the sport, the respect for the system and things like that. Even though you could point to him as somebody who's probably on the lower level of the respect for the system, as the traditions and whatnot, he's still clearly much more dedicated to all of this than Kitao ever was. And that temper just, that was inevitably going to lead to several incidents. And yeah, I was making it a joke, but like there were a lot of incidents.
Yeah.
So it's a big deal to go against tradition, and it's a big deal to, especially when that means physical violence outside the ring.
Yeah.
But I've always thought of him as a great case study for the world of sumo. He's like the exception that proves the rule. Somebody who steps out of line and does something like an athlete today. I mentioned like you'd get fired from any job if you kicked a dude and then pushed a lady into a door.
Definitely.
But then a year later, as long as you say you're sorry, they're going to let you back in.
Right, exactly. Like that's like, an expected off-season thing in the NFL, something like that.
Yeah.
It's not as big a deal in other sports, but here he could be the second to top guy. Clearly he didn't eclipse Chino Fuji, but like the second top guy in the entire sport. One incident, boom, it's over, like instantly. Granted, there were other incidents, but like this was like the thing that totally ended it for him. And
as it should.
Yeah, as it should. And I mean, I mentioned it happens in other sports. Obviously, that doesn't mean it's a good thing.
No.
Yeah.
People should be punished for when they act poorly. But guys like Conor McGregor in MMA, it doesn't matter how much he misbehaves. He makes so much money for the company that the UFC is always going to put him on the stage if they can. But not so for sumo. It is tradition is more important than the individual, and that is.
I can respect that.
Yeah, I mean it's a taste thing, sure. Like what you like in sports is can be different from other people, but it's clearly a very illustrative case, and I think it's an important story to know, not just for the fun facts, but for the impact on sumo and what it can teach us about the sport in general. But that's all I got. You guys got anything else that you want to talk about? Any other anything else you want to ask about him that I can dodge the question and probably not know the answer to?
I did have what's it called when you win a tournament? What is the technical term?
It's the tip of my tongue. Yokozuna Mac, what's that called?
Yeah, I'll take this one. It's called Yusho.
Yeah.
And the second place is called a June Yusho.
Boom.
Oh, it's a good thing you've got multiple Nerf guns. Ow!
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said Yusho.
You deserve that. All right. Why don't you play us off, Ryan?
All right. If you enjoyed this podcast and all of our other podcasts, leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or your favorite podcast listening service. The Fleric part where he talks about Twitter and Facebook. Twitter is at GSumoBreakdown.
Search for us on those things. Our blog is grandsumobreakdown.com, and you can check out fantasy and sumo power rankings on there. And you can email us at grandsumobreakdown@gmail.com. I can't remember if that was Fleric or if that was you, Mac.
That's Yokozuna Mac's part.
That was me.
Sorry, Yokozuna Mac. Ow, I deserve that one. What's our phone number, Mac?
Well, if you'd like to talk to us, we don't blame you if you wouldn't, but if you'd like to talk to us, give us a call at 805-613-7866. That's 805-613-SUMO.
All right. And real quick before we go.
Ow.
Hey, ow! Jesus.
All right. We'll see you next time.
Ow.
Thank you for listening to Grand Sumo Breakdown. Until next time.
Throw your salt high.
And keep moving forward.